Alright, Chapter 1, Household Spirits.
Nora, breakfast!
I'm coming! I glared at my reflection. My hair was not cooperating. The autumn humidity was definitely not doing me any favors these days. I hear you there, girl. I finally just gave up. After another sleepless night, I really didn't have the energy to keep trying to make it look less like a fluffy red squirrel had taken up residence on my head. Hats, girl. Hats or ponytails are your friends. I gave myself another once over in the mirror and shrugged. Close enough, I guess. Grabbing my book bag, I thundered blearily to the kitchen where my beloved coffee maker awaited. It really was the only thing that made getting up worthwhile. Once in the kitchen, I abandoned my book bag near the stairs and wandered to the table in search of delicious liquid caffeine. I held back a yawn as I poured myself a cup. It would be nice to go back to bed and sleep for another hour or two. Dragging myself downstairs was getting harder and harder each day. The onslaught of strange dreams the last few nights had definitely impaired my ability to get a good night's sleep. Well, that and the sleepwalking. I'd already tried to zombie walk myself outside in the dead of night at least 3 times. Barring the first night I'd awakened in the woods, I hadn't managed to get past the kitchen. But waking yourself up on a cold tile floor while muttering to yourself in a weird, raspy voice was definitely not good for the sleep vibes. Even now, it wasn't easy to shake off that creepy sensation of being drawn outside against my will. Not to mention, worrying that it might happen again didn't exactly help me fall asleep each night. I'd already developed a habit of waking myself up every few hours throughout the night, but it was starting to take its toll. At any rate, Mom had, as usual, set out a simple breakfast of egg toast and fruit. I could take or leave the food. The coffee was my real target. In fact, if Mom hadn't given me the sit-and-eat look before I could abscond with the steaming mug, I doubt I'd have bothered with the toast at all. As it was, I sighed and pulled up a chair. Nothing could defeat that Mom look. If she was lurking around the breakfast table, it could only mean a morning conversation I was barely awake enough to participate in. Spencer, I could hear off in another part of the house hunting for his car keys. Something that had become a daily ritual since they developed the odd habit of disappearing overnight.
So, how is school going?
Here we go. Fine, I guess. There's nothing major to report. Nothing I can report without making you fear for my sanity, of course.
Really? After this much time, I figured you would have at least formulated some entertaining opinions on your classmates and teachers. You know how Spencer is. He never shares any fun details.
Probably because Spencer had slowly become a crotchety old man these last few years. Ha ha. Well, as much as I would love to share school gossip, I'm afraid I don't have many interesting opinions at this point. School is school. Some classmates are people I vaguely remember from middle school, others are people I don't know. And my teachers are teachers. Except the one that was a wizard. And the 2 that were apparently vampires. And probably several others I didn't know about yet, but were definitely too weird to be human. I'm looking at you, Mr. Wepler. A lot of vampires in the school. And wizards. Mom was giving me a look that was practically dripping with maternal disappointment. Sorry, Mom, they aren't that interesting to gossip about. They're all just completely normal and totally boring people. No magical beings and paranormal craziness here. Nope, not at all. Definitely no weird things that are completely stressing me out and keeping me from sleeping or focusing on school right now. I picked up my toast, watching a familiar brown creature toddle into the kitchen from the living room. Huh, he's up earlier than usual. That little guy was definitely among the things stressing me out. He's so cute, though. I'd become aware of him 2 days after joining the Paranormal Mysteries Club. I still didn't know if he came with the house or moved in after I descended into the weird. But the first time I'd seen him, I screamed my head off and freaked out everyone at home. Oh no! And Danny. Apparently, werewolves have really great hearing. Oh no! Oh no! Memory time!
Nora, what is it?
I was standing on my desk chair, shaking and pointing to a corner near my closet. The little creature was just staring at me, wide-eyed and looking like it was about as afraid as I was.
What's going on? What is it?
It's over there!
It was when they both went to the corner to investigate that it occurred to me they wouldn't be able to see it.
Honey, I don't see anything.
Was it a mouse?
Do you think we have rodents? We'll have to call an exterminator.
I realized Spencer was standing in the door staring at me, and that's what kind of brought me back to my senses about the whole situation. Fortunately, I had convinced Mom and Dad I had just seen a really, really big spider. I mean, this guy's kinda mousy. Dad insisted on emptying my closet trying to find it. He felt about spiders a bit like I did. But of course, no spider ever turned up, and the brown creature had scurried off after that. And since then, I'd seen it nearly every day. I watched it disappear into the other room carrying Spencer's car keys and frowned. Why does it keep hiding them? I still hadn't figured out what the little creature was, but at the very least it didn't seem dangerous. Allie and Danny both had told me to try to avoid it as much as possible, which did not make me feel better about having it in the house. Neither of them seemed to think it was dangerous either.
If it's content to ignore you, then just don't bother it. It's probably just some kind of household spirit. A brownie or something.
A what now?
Just a spirit that's attached to a particular household and protects it. Lots of homes have one, actually.
Ewan says there's one in my house too, though I can't see it. He's seen it the few times he's been over. There's some kind of fairy, apparently.
Just try leaving a bowl of milk in a discreet place every so often. And otherwise, leave it alone. They're fine to have around, but you don't want to annoy it.
It keeps hiding Spencer's keys, though, and his homework, and his shoes. I'm pretty sure it's also what dropped his toothbrush in the toilet. Allie snickered quietly.
Did he make it mad or something?
Maybe. I don't know. What sort of things can make them mad?
Just about anything, to be honest.
It was weird sharing the house with something no one else could see. Especially when it seemed to want to bully my brother. Which, hey, I understood that. But Spencer kept blaming me for everything going missing.
Nora?
What? Sorry! From the look on her face, I had the feeling she'd been trying to get my attention for a while.
I just asked how that club is going. You mentioned joining the club Allie's in.
She looked a little worried. Well, I had been zoning out a lot lately. I tried for a chipper smile, but probably failed. Too tired.
You sure you're okay? You look like you're still half asleep. Maybe you're coming down with something.
It's just the usual stress. There's just a lot of schoolwork to catch up on.
Yeah, Spencer said the same thing. It's not even that late in the year, for goodness sake.
Senior workload is pretty steep, but it's nothing to worry about, I promise. She put a hand on my forehead anyway. I pushed it away and took another sip from my cup. Looking tired did not mean I might have a fever. Mom, however, did not seem convinced yet. And the club is going okay. At any rate, it gives me something to do instead of just waiting for Allie to finish up.
What was it again? Mysteries... something?
Paranormal mysteries.
I still can't believe Allie is interested in that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was surprised too. Boy, was I ever surprised. In fact, surprise doesn't even begin to cover it.
Do you enjoy it?
I shrugged and drained my cup. It wasn't even a matter of enjoying it or not. What was it? NPRA? Yeah, their local agency apparently already started a file on me the moment the Spriggan incident happened. That was an intensely uncomfortable feeling, by the way. But at least being in the club meant I didn't have to worry about dealing with them yet. It could be worse, I guess. And a lot of the people in the club are nice. Danny, Elliot.
Danny and Elliot are in it.
She looked thoughtful.
I wouldn't have suspected that.
Well, there are lots of people who have an interest in the paranormal. I don't think it's that surprising. Besides, it's better than the science club or something.
I think Spencer was going to join the science club.
I know. She gave me a scathing look as she began clearing her breakfast dishes.
What do you do during club meetings anyway?
Well, a lot of reading and talking about things. It wasn't exactly untrue. At any rate, I did a lot of reading up on things while there, and there was definitely occasional talking. Spencer saved me from further explaining the ins and outs of the paranormal club when he came into the kitchen wearing his customary scowl.
I can't find my keys anywhere. I haven't seen them, sweetheart.
Speak of the devil. I grabbed a bite of toast and retrieved my backpack, far too tired to deal with him this morning. After dumping my dishes in the sink, I quickly washed my hands before downing the rest of my coffee. Allie should be here soon. I'm going to go out and wait.
Okay, honey. Have a nice day.
Ugh, what a gray day. I stopped just outside and shivered slightly as I peered up at the sky. The temperature had taken a sudden dip, and it was quite overcast out. I wouldn't be surprised if it rained soon. Maybe I should go back in for an umbrella. I'd be fine. Wasn't like my hair could get much worse even if it got a little wet. I hopped off the porch and started down the walkway toward the street, frowning slightly. I should probably be less cranky about the whole supernatural thing. Aside from the few odd creatures popping up, it's not as if I was in danger on a daily basis. A lot of things were still the same as always. The main thing that had me on edge was the whole secret-keeping thing, but not even because I hated keeping secrets from my family. It was just difficult. I felt like I was in constant danger of being found out. With all the drama and issues I'd caused in the past, sometimes it felt like everyone was just waiting for me to do something weird again. I really hadn't been prepared for the floodgates of weird to open up on my life after that first day. Now it felt like I was relying on the rest of the club to hold my hand and walk me through the crazy when they all had their own problems. Like this whole Halloween and Samhain thing that everyone was so tense about. I sighed as I leaned against the fence and waited for Allie, watching the dark clouds linger in the treetops of the nearby foothills. I still had so many questions about all this, and finding answers hadn't been easy. To be totally honest, it was the suddenness of it all that was most confusing. I knew Allie thought there was a chance Spencer and I had always been able to see supernatural things, even as kids, but I did not recall it being like this. Since that first day I'd been invited to the club, I was constantly glimpsing what Allie said were little fae or spirits of some kind. At home, at school, at the grocery store. Like the little brown creature in the house. That was freaky enough, but there were also faint whispers and things I could only glimpse from the corners of my eyes. Voices that seemed to whisper at the back of mind or call my name. But when I turned around, there was never anything there. I didn't usually spook easily, but this was spooky, and I didn't understand why it all came out of nowhere. I drummed my fingers lightly against the fence as I waited for Allie. She was kind of late. If I've been part fae since birth, you'd think that the paranormal would have been plaguing me since childhood, and not just waiting until I found out I was part Fae. Then again, that was the whole point. That maybe it had been and I just couldn't remember. Like Allie had pointed out before, Spencer and I had a lot of strange games we'd play as kids. And there were imaginary friends. We'd talk about seeing faces in the trees or hearing singing at night. The memories were all faded and probably heavily altered with time, though. Out of nowhere, something streaked through my field of vision and smacked into the fence behind me. What the... I looked down curiously, trying to work out what it was. Something was making quite a commotion down there. We lived in an area that wasn't quite suburban and wasn't quite rural, so I was pretty used to seeing wildlife. What was wriggling around under the fence next to my feet was definitely not any animal I was familiar with. My first instinct was to scramble away and squeal like a child, because that was definitely how adults handled this sort of thing. What is that? I stared at what appeared to be something caught under the fence. At first glance, I might have taken it for a really weird-looking rabbit, if not for the tail. And, pants. You think that looks... I mean, I guess it kind of looks like a rabbit if it's wriggling around. It's got a mushroom hat. And the mushroom on its head. Okay, it looks literally nothing like a rabbit. I can see it, though. It was definitely something supernatural. Ugh. I grimaced and crouched next to it. It was calling out in a frantic little voice, but I couldn't make out any intelligible words. I wasn't sure what to do. Allie had stressed to not interact with anything I didn't recognize. But it sounded like it needed help. Aww. I mean, if it seems that we're there and we didn't do anything to help it, it might curse us. Alright, I'm gonna help the little mushroom dude. Come on. I couldn't help but study the little creature curiously. It wasn't that big, maybe the size of a small cat. It didn't look remotely humanoid, but then I could only see its back legs. It was wedged tightly under one board, as if it had been trying to scramble under, but misjudged how much space it needed. It was clearly in distress. I can't just stand here and watch. I cautiously approached the creature and tried to work it loose. As soon as I touched its legs, it squealed and started to thrash around like crazy. Shh, shh, I'm just trying to help. Calm down. It was clearly more afraid of me than I was of it. I let it go and tried to work out how to get it free without hurting it. My hands were shaking slightly as I attempted to pry the board back enough that it could work itself the rest of the way under. It was my first time actually touching something not human. At least this one wasn't remotely threatening. Aha! It finally worked itself loose and shot off into Danny's yard without a thank you or even a look my way. That's okay. I didn't mind. What are you doing? Ah! I let out a shriek and whirled around to find Spencer standing a few feet from me staring. Nothing! That came out way louder than intended. My heart was pounding ferociously. Had he seen that? It looked like you were talking to yourself. Okay, just play it cool. There was a rabbit trapped in the fence. I was trying to set it free. Spencer leaned down, staring down at the small gap in the fence. He narrowed his eyes suspiciously as he looked up at me. I didn't see anything. It probably ran off before you came out then. I've been watching you for a while now. Oops. Just because you didn't see it doesn't mean it wasn't there. If it was there, I should have been able to see it. Fine. You got me. I was talking to an invisible rabbit. Probably the Easter Bunny. Call the CIA. You've been acting really weird lately. Ever since you joined that club. No, even before that. It's your imagination. How long are you going to keep pretending everything is normal? It is normal. You're just being paranoid, as usual. Really? And you have absolutely no ulterior motives for joining a specific club, then? Exactly what sort of ulterior motive do you think I might possibly have? I have literally no motive other than wanting something to do while I wait for my afternoon ride. I hope you know that people say that club is weird. The members, the club room. People say strange things happen on the 4th floor. Spencer, it's a paranormal mysteries club. I have no idea what sort of moron would expect it to be normal in the first place. And we aren't even the only club on the 4th floor. Not everything they say can just be shrugged off as rumors. Why is there never anyone in the club room even during club activities? How would you even know that? I've been up there before. Oh, this is really early. Why? Is he spying on me? It doesn't bother you at all to know that people say things about it. I was so done with his interrogation. Part of me said I wasn't obligated to answer his questions, but the real issue was he was just hitting way too close to the truth. It's not the first time people have spread rumors about me. No. I guess it's not, is it? Weren't you leaving? I know something is up with you. And when you finally screw up, I'll be watching. Yeah, that doesn't sound at all crazy. He suddenly grabbed my arm, squeezing tightly. Oh shoot. I'd forgotten. Sorry. I didn't mean that. He had my arm in a death grip, and no matter how I tried to pull away, he wouldn't let go. I don't want to hear that from you again. Ever. Fine. I said I'm sorry. You're hurting me.
Hey, Nora?
Spencer and I both jumped when we heard the voice. Danny, my savior. A second later, Danny stepped around the fence, giving us a friendly smile. His eyes immediately went to the grip Spencer had on my arm. The smile didn't waver, but when he met Spencer's eyes, Spencer immediately released me. Look at the stink eyes our brother's giving him. He stormed away to his car and, seconds later, was peeling out of the driveway. I breathed a sigh of relief.
You okay? I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard the two of you arguing.
I'm fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Spencer just hates me. I don't know. I'm used to it already anyway. Danny didn't seem convinced, and I wondered if he had heard the entire conversation about the club. With his hearing, I didn't doubt it. I rubbed my arm where Spencer had grabbed it. That would probably bruise nicely.
Does he always treat you like that?
Well, he usually just grouses and snaps. Today I made him mad, though. It's nothing. I promise. I should be more careful what I say.
I don't think anything you could have said really warranted that.
It's a really, really sensitive nerve. And I hit it. I shouldn't have. He crossed his arms over his chest and frowned.
He shouldn't grab you like that either.
I know, but in this case we were both wrong. Look, don't worry about it. It's really fine. It was sweet that he was so worried about it, though. Allie pulled up just then, honking to get my attention. Thankfully, that saved me from having to explain my weird relationship with my brother to Danny. Thanks for the concern. See you at school. I waved and ran to her car. Danny looked really unhappy, and I felt sort of embarrassed that he had to witness that. It was one thing for Spencer to be like that in front of family, but another thing entirely when other people saw it too. Oh, I think Danny's gonna keep a closer eye on you, girl.
What was that about?
What was what about?
Don't give me that. Danny looked kinda mad.
It was nothing, really.
Danny almost never gets mad.
He saw Spencer get a little cranky at me and wasn't happy with my explanation, that's all.
Everything okay?
Well, I used the C word. She grimaced and reached over to pat my arm. She knew enough about Spencer's history to know that he was really sensitive about any implications regarding his mental health.
I assume Spencer didn't take it well.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Spencer really didn't tend to get physical. I just shouldn't have said he was crazy. He hated people saying that to him, which, honestly, was fair enough after everything he'd gone through. During the really, really brief period Mom and Dad hoped we could just go back to school and move on like nothing happened, we'd both been bullied. People said we were lying, we were making things up, that we'd wanted attention or had been doing something illegal in the woods. It kind of rolled off my back. It's pointless to be upset about people calling you a liar when you know you're telling the truth. Spencer hadn't handled it as well. And of course, he'd gotten the worst of it. He was the one who said he saw monsters, or that I was a monster that had attacked him. He'd lost the vision in his right eye with no apparent injuries. Some thought it was due to him hitting his head. Others thought it was psychosomatic. Either way, kids at school called him a liar. Or said he was crazy. None of his therapists believed him either. Sometimes I think even he thought he was going crazy. At least before the move. The bullying definitely hit him pretty hard. And crazy was a word that was, understandably, off limits.
So, Danny heard the argument.
Apparently one of the curses of living next door to a werewolf is that he hears just about everything.
Ah, yeah. That would be frustrating. I imagine you've had to put an end to singing in the shower.
Ha ha. It's Dad that sings in the shower anyway. She laughed, but it faded quickly to be replaced by a look of worry.
Are you okay?
Yeah, it really wasn't that big a deal.
Okay, good.
It wasn't anything I wasn't already used to anyway. When we reached the school, Allie went straight to the office, as she always did. Thanks to her extra credits set up with the school admin, I always ended up with a bit of free time before class started. I headed up to the club room alone. At the very least, arriving early meant I had time to do a bit of research before class. I paused on the bottom flight of stairs looking up. To be honest, I was still feeling a bit guilty about the argument with Spencer. I can be the bigger sister. Or bigger sibling. Even if he doesn't apologize, at least I apologize for my part of it. Before going up, I pulled out my phone and quickly texted Spencer. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I didn't expect him to answer, but it made me feel better to send it. I could have pointed out that he should stop accusing me of everything under the sun and acting like I was some sort of supervillain in disguise, but I really just didn't want to start another fight. It really wasn't worth it. The real truth of the matter was that Spencer wasn't wrong in anything he'd said about the club being weird, or that my being in it made me weird. And his reasons for thinking it probably weren't far off either. That's what made trying to cover it up all the more frustrating. I was just gaslighting him to keep the secret. And that, at least, was definitely not fair. But I didn't know what else to do. It would have been nice to be able to talk to him about it normally. Tell him the truth. Before I could even think of doing that, Allie wanted to try to figure out if he might also be a cryptic of some kind. But with Spencer, she wanted to take a really, really delicate approach, understandably so. She'd said she wouldn't have time to gently poke around regarding him until after Samhain, which began on sundown of the 31st, still over a week away. So for the time being, I had to do my best to keep calm and not arouse suspicion. Not that I was doing a great job there.